What's going on, everyone? This is Dr. Mephisto and welcome to the ride. We're here in Toronto and the guest I'm getting today is a DJ, a producer, but also a host on iLive Radio, and I can't wait for you to discover him. Let's go! Mr. Kush Nubia. How's it going?
Good.
Let's do this.
Yes, sir.
Alright, as usual, give me a quick intro for people who don't know you.
Oh, okay, so Kush Nubia is my DJ name, aka Nubio. Started DJing in 2008. And I started DJing because I wanted to do more of the Afro sounds. When I first came to Toronto, the Afro sounds that were happening were in basically Jason Palmer's parties that I knew of anyways. And so I wanted to do more of that. And so I kind of started branching off and, started DJing, doing the old school. I guess it was considered old school then, time like Fella and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then kind of got introduced to more guys. I happened to meet this guy Crispin from the Zimbabwe community, and that's kind of how I found out like, yeah, you can kind of update your sound to newer African sounds, because to them it's kind of like, you're playing our parents' music and stuff like that. So
right. Through
that I got to meet some other cats and got update my sound and stuff like that, and started doing more DJing, producing and stuff like that, and now just doing regular DJ shows on iLive, which had you guest on, and just pushing out more productions, just trying to do that.
So yeah, you're producing, right?
Yeah. So 2013 is when I put up my first release. But I started doing production more in the Afro House lane, more like Afro-Cuban spiritual kind of stuff like that, and then branched off into doing some hip-hop stuff. But now I'm kind of really more focused back into doing those kind of world sound, Afro beat sounds, bashment kind of stuff, which is that like mix of like Afro and dancehall kind of stuff coming out of the UK. And also I want to kind of like DJ that kind of thing too, so just kind of trying to put it all together in a cohesive sound.
So let's take a step back. So are you originally from Toronto?
No, I went to high school in Hamilton, and then moved out here when I started working. So I've been out here for maybe, I don't know, I'd say over 10 years though.
And you were born in Hamilton?
I was born in Goderich. And
sorry, where?
Goderich. It's a small town.
Oh.
Yeah, small in Canada.
Where is it?
It's.
Sorry, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah. It's by Lake Erie.
So it's still in Ontario, right?
Yeah, still in Ontario.
I see.
My parents immigrated there from Jamaica.
Okay.
Yeah, so we moved around a bit, and then I landed out here doing work. Lived in Windsor for a while before Hamilton. Mm-hmm. And then always been into music and stuff like that throughout that time. And
is that a parent's influence or?
Yeah, like definitely had some music when we were young, and was always music playing in the house and stuff like that, and getting introduced to different music and things like that. So it was good that way.
And how did you get into house music actually?
Oh man, into house music? That's in high school. I was really into hip hop at that time, but then it kind of took a lull. Like the music wasn't really moving as much, and then I don't know. This people started just playing some other kind of stuff, and I was like, "What is that?" Because it was like soulful and like just good messages and stuff in that, and right. And then came with all that. Because all that time I was into breakdancing and dancing and stuff like that, and then came all the the house dance, all the house moves, and then came out like a whole culture like that. So I kind of got swept up into that, the fashion culture and stuff like that, and then started coming out here to Toronto and getting to the parties and stuff like that, doing a little bit of the underage thing, but you know, do what you do to get into the culture. And
so when was that?
That was like in the early 90s.
Okay.
Early 90s, late 80s.
So you get around pretty deep and all that stuff.
Yeah. Like there's different clubs like Copa was one of the ones I used to try to get into, because those times I was young, so to get in those clubs, you know, you had to do the whole fake ID thing. It was like a major thing that was happening out here. So, you know, because it was the thing that was happening. So in order to get involved in it, you know, you kind of had to like bend the rules a little bit, but it was fun. It was a good time in the city, for sure. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and you say you already have a bunch of EPs out there?
Yeah, I got a few EPs out. The one that I probably would be known more for would be the Aquanti one, which had the one single on there, which is the Cuban Spiritual. That one went out pretty good. I have another one, Duende, which featured Keely, a singer in Toronto. Kaysha is her first name. Kaysha Garrick. She's a dancer, singer, performer in the city. Great voice, so she's on that. And I did another one that was called Kush, KSH, and that had a compilation to some various artists from the city. One artist from Kingston, Jamaica. And that again was just a variety of different sounds also. So it was kind of, a lot of them are kind of like finding my sound,
right? And
experimenting with different things and seeing like, you know, what was actually possible and seeing where my range was also as a producer.
Right. And that's cool. You'll send me all that. I'll put that in the video description.
Oh yeah, cool, man. Yeah. It's all there on my SoundCloud and stuff like that. Yeah, but now it's just trying to really trying to go further and work with other artists in the Afro lane, some more known maybe, and just try to get placements on projects and things like that. So,
and so how do you get in touch with iLive?
I just reached out and told them what I was doing. At that time, I was still kind of had a little bit of like known a little bit from the Afro scene that was happening in Toronto.
Right.
And I told them what I wanted to do. I told them at the time though that it wasn't going to be just an African Afro house show. I wanted to like vary up on some different sounds to marry what I was going to do in production wise also. And they're open to it. DJ Sessions, the man who's behind it, was open to it. Brought me on. And when I first started, I started doing more of the kind of like lo-fi, still trickling the Afro stuff, but it was kind of like, if I wanted to draw to anything, it would have been more closer to the like that selection sound out of Los Angeles, because I was really digging that at the time when I started DJing on the radio.
Is there a particular reason why you get so hooked to African sound?
I think it stemmed from getting involved in doing some cultural dance stuff, and just learning about culture that way. Because I did some classes in Cuban salsa.
Oh, really?
In rumba, really. And when I don't know, it was just like something when I got introduced to rumba, it just took me off into this whole another area of wanting to learn culture and stuff like that. And there was all these drum rhythms and everything like that went with it and everything. So when I came back from there, I was like, okay, I want to start doing a party and start doing this stuff. So I actually reached out to different DJs who were doing that, like Palm and stuff like that. But I think maybe I didn't really, I had the idea, but didn't really have the way to articulate what I wanted to do properly, possibly. So they didn't really get involved at the time. And then so it just forced me, because I wasn't really DJing at the time to be like, or DJing at a point where I'd want to be out DJing in front of people. So
right.
It kind of just happened where I had another DJ in the event. He got too inebriated to really continue, so I just had to jump on the decks, and then from then it just continued happening, because I had a good reaction, so I figured, okay, I can do this, you know. So
when was your first event, and how did it go?
Well, that was the one. I had that because I used to do like different events, and I play on the congas and stuff like that in relation to the whole Cuban thing. Because when I came back from that, I got into a band and started playing conga and learning conga drums and all that stuff, and just really diving into the culture and stuff like that.
So it's really Cuba that triggered this interest.
Yeah. It was that trip there and just learning some things that just took my understanding to another level. Just through the dance and stuff, you just learn a lot through the movement and the communication of non-communication. If that makes sense. So yeah, and then the drum rhythms and everything like that is just a whole nother level of things. So so just wanting to do events in that lane. And just bring different cultures together, like Brazil and like all the diaspora that could relate to the drum sounds and drum rhythms, and bring all those rhythms together. That was the real mission. And then, so the first event was like in 2008, and that's what I'm saying with the DJ got inebriated, couldn't continue, so then I had to continue. Then after that, I just kept going. Then I started doing this thing called Upendo with another DJ from Cuba. His name is Alexis. DJ Du Bois, and through that we started doing, it was like a party with also a live set, so we'd have artists come on and do that. So that was pretty cool. We had different artists from Cuba, Toronto. It was hip hop and just also world sounds and stuff like that. And then from there I went on to doing this Joyo party, which was more based in more of a DJ element with like Afro house and stuff like that. That was at the Bunda Lounge, and that went off pretty well. We'd have a live piece in there too, where we'd have someone come and sing live over tracks like PA. But it was good. It was cool that way.
I was gonna say, I guess you didn't stay in the resort in Cuba.
No, only a couple of times. Other times, no. Other times I went, it was like in a nice place to stay, like a house and stuff like that. So it was cool, yeah.
No, because that's the stereotype I hear about Cuba all the time in Canada, is everybody's going to the resort, but I guess that's not how you get your epiphany.
Yeah, well, actually, I was at the resort. I was in that trip. I was at the resort, but what we were doing workshops. So we were going into Havana and meeting up with actual Cubans and actually taking the class there.
Right.
So that just brought a whole other different element than just sitting on the resort the whole time.
It's funny, when I learned salsa, it was my dream to go learn salsa in Cuba.
Yeah.
And the only time I went to Cuba, I didn't dance any salsa. It was like a couple trip, whatever. But I was wondering why all this Joyo party was like, why is that all Spanish? Now I get it.
Yeah, well, the term yo-yo is really an African term.
Oh, okay, I see. I thought it was
yeah, but it was really more of a Afro diasporic experience. So we did have a Spanish element to it, but we did play a lot of Afro house, a lot of ancestral sounds and tech and stuff like that. It was at a time too where everyone could kind of have their own sound, so you could have different DJs and you wouldn't have any duplicate of anything playing, because everybody would have their own sound at that time. There was some real cool websites at the time coming out of Africa, which had all types of different producers and DJs posting stuff there that you could buy and spin, so everybody could have their own sound versus just going to Beatport or Tracksource or something like that.
Right. And you said you brought DJs from Cuba in Toronto?
We had artists that were already here in Toronto that were from Cuban descent.
Right.
So we'd have them perform. A lot of the artists that were of different descent were already here, going to school, maybe like going to York, music program or something like that.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask, was it hard to bring Cuban musicians or DJs from Cuba?
Yeah, it is a challenge though. We have tried to do it before, but it does take some work, and you need to have be able to connect to the right people and all that kind of stuff.
Well, even for them to get out of the country must be I mean, at the time it must have been complicated.
Yeah, I mean it's I think it's maybe getting easier now, because there is someone I'd like to bring to Toronto, one of the DJs, because last time I was not the last time, but the time before, I got to play with DJ One, the top Afro house DJs, Afrobeat DJs in Cuba, the DJ Iwe. So some of the guys, some other DJs here in Toronto and myself would like to pool our resources, put our heads together and figure out a way we could bring him here, because we got an opportunity to DJ out there, so it was a big cool exchange.
Right. And so yeah, I just wanted to go back on this, but you said like you had your realization in Cuba. What's your motivation on a day-to-day basis to play music for people? Like, what do you get out of it?
Yeah, I like the energy exchange, man. Because it's a different, like, when you're DJing and you're giving and you're playing and you're giving out your energy or giving out your vibe, it's given back to you by the reaction of by the people who are there, the patrons or the people who are watching or whatever like that. So when you get that good exchange going, it's a nice experience. So that's what I go for when I DJ.
And it's funny because you went for dance workshops and you came back with an epiphany about music.
Yeah. Well, I was always into music and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it was something that I wanted to do, but I mean, it just pushed it forward and to a point where it's like, okay, it's like, you're playing with the idea, but then you're like, no, I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? So it was kind of one of those things to confirm, yeah, that's the direction I want to be going in, or that's what I want to be. I have that aspect of that in my life happening, artistic expression and stuff like that. So.
Right, and what happened to the dance aspect? Are you still into that, or?
I usually it's just when I'm out or something like that, but I haven't like formally taken any classes or done anything like that. I wouldn't say that I'm a trained dancer or anything like that. I just enjoy just movement. You know what I mean?
Right. So it was the trigger that made you branch out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I mean, outside of music, what do you do?
Outside of music, I work in IT. So I work as a project manager.
No way.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Gotta be able to have resources to keep the music going. So yeah, that's how I do it.
That's funny. That's I'm in the same field.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, the same field.
It helps. I mean, if I could do music full time, I would.
I don't know. I would probably not personally. At what you said about connecting with people.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a family of artists.
Yeah.
And that's really why I don't want to become like a full-time artist.
Okay.
I want to do something that is linked to art.
Yep.
Eventually, but still in the technology space.
Yes.
But the old music thing connection needs to stay for pleasure, because that's where recharge your battery.
Yeah.
For me, I need to do. It's a nice park here. There's some nice places in Toronto, man.
Yeah, there is.
So what do you think about Toronto in terms of like being a DJ?
Well, in terms of response to your events, or how do you mean, or just
Anything.
in general? I think there's a great DJ culture here. I think if you do well here, I think you can do well in other cities. It's one where you need to, you gotta try to carve out your space, because there's a lot of DJs here.
Right.
I'm sure there's a lot of DJs in all cities, but yeah, just to carve out your space and kind of carve out your niche is kind of what you kind of have to do. And then there's like different levels of DJ also too, right? Like some people this is what they do, and it's like they're a full-time thing, and then there's other people it's just a thing that they do for just a pastime. So there's that too, like just trying to get your gigs and stuff like that too, and do that. So I don't know, it's an interesting space, but it's got its challenges and it's got its rewards, like anything else. But I like it. I like the fact that the underground DJs really push the popular scene here,
Mm-hmm.
which is great.
And did you ever try to put your own voice on on the music, because you sound like you could drop some basses.
Yeah, I've been told that before, but I mean I messed around with it, but it was never something that to see myself as a front person. I've never really
some Barry White shit going on.
Yeah, I've never really thought of myself doing that, but
I just need to talk, man.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in the future. But yeah, right now I would just like to be able to get stuff into the DJ's hands to see how they put it in their sets and stuff like that. You know. I think that's what my mission is right now.
Can put some do some like
some spoken word or something
jingles,
like that. Yeah.
R&B jingles,
some commercials or something. Yeah, that might work.
You hear it first.
Yeah, that might work. Yeah.
But yeah, like the radio thing just makes sense with that type of voice.
Yeah, that's another reason, because a lot of times I've been told a lot. It's like, hey, you should be doing radio. So that's another reason why I reached out to iLive, and they were gracious enough to let me exercise my passions there. So it was good. It's good. And they're doing quite a lot of good things too, man. They just opened another studio in Tottenham, England. So there's a lot of cross-pollination happening between artists in Toronto and London. So
how does it work exactly? Like this is like one site for all the locations?
Yeah, but the feeds that come through for the show, because they have live feeds for the show where you can see video also.
Oh, right.
I believe there'll be 2 feeds for that. But the events are all on the same site and everything like that. So they got Soul Fest happening over in the UK, and they are bringing artists from Toronto there, like they brought artists from the UK here. So it's a back and forth. So it's good because it's kind of like an incubator, and a lot of artists.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can develop your things there. Even I want to do some more, because they're more on a soul tip. So it would be good for me to exercise my skills there as a producer and see if I can get placements in that too. And what's cool is just because you're part of the art involved in it doesn't mean that you ought to get an automatic buy. You know what I mean? It has to meet the mark. You know what I mean? So that's good. It keeps everybody pushing.
Right. And no, but I think it's interesting that it's like a crossworld between multiple countries, and you have shows happening in multiple countries.
Yeah, man.
Coming back in one stream. That's very interesting. Well, I mean, personally, I come from a music culture where I was listening a lot of UK music growing up. So it's interesting that UK music still reach Toronto. What about the opposite? Like,
in the US, you mean?
Okay, so when you said earlier that there's a lot of good DJs.
Yeah.
Are you differentiating types of DJs?
Well, I just mean the DJ. Okay, so what I mean is, like, there's a lot of DJs. The DJ culture here in the city is strong. Like there's a lot of DJs and getting a lot of good gigs, a lot of good placements, and there's corporations that are open to have DJs
right
as part of their aesthetic. In the, like, you know, go to the shopping centers and stuff like that. All these designer places have DJs DJing in their stores.
Right.
Especially a lot of female DJs get a lot of those gigs, and that's like, that's a good look, you know. So yeah. So in terms of quality of DJs, I mean that's kind of up to everyone's opinion, to each person's opinion. But I mean, there is popular events, you know, that people go to, and I think that's kind of what it's about. Maybe you don't have to be the best DJ, but can you curate an event that people would like to continue going to?
Right.
And it adds to the fabric of the city. I think that's an important thing too. So.
True.
Yeah.
And do you have any influences yourself?
As in musical influences?
Yeah, like I mean, in terms of DJs in the city, like.
DJs in the city?
Yeah, DJs that influence you, or.
Well, I would have to say a lot of the early DJs that I've been around, like Corey, definitely. Dawkins is an influence. Jason Palma is definitely an influence. He was doing a lot of those world type sound parties in the beginning.
Right.
Other DJs that I liked were like Dave Campbell. I thought was good. I feel is a good DJ. And man, there's a few. Starting from scratch, obviously, is definitely an influence of DJ. Let's see. I'm trying to think of like who were actually doing the parties.
And also, like in terms of producers.
Well, producers, I don't know.
Is there a lot
would be more
of info?
outside of the city. For
Right.
me, it's more outside of the city just because of the sounds that I'm listening to.
Right.
Like in the Afro house scene, you know, Black Motion. Those guys are dope. Black Coffee, obviously. Also, Oshalade is like from the beginning. You know what I mean? Newer sounds is like Kaysha, Carmack. I don't know. Sango, I love, man. He's like so. As far as like that Brazilian trappy, dancey sound, like he just destroys that. Like he just changed the whole. A lot of people started doing the sounds to follow what he was doing. So he's definitely dope. But yeah, there's so many. I would just like to try to plug into and DJ in a lot of these different places, like Montreal, for example, is a different place. Like that scene's crazy. So.
Do you feel like there's for house there's a Toronto sound?
No.
Or like a Canada sound?
Not really.
Yeah, it's more like for hip hop.
I think, and that Canadian sound for hip hop's, it's now just kind of more getting more noticed. But for dance stuff, I think like Nick Holder, I think was one of the producers I would say was really holding it down for the city as far as like what the Afro sounds is concerned and house and stuff like that. Because I think he even went out to South Africa and actually was like immerse himself into the culture out there. So I think that's pretty dope.
What's his name?
Nick Holder.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's definitely an influence, and he was working with Zaki Ibrahim, who was a dope singer from the city. They did some wicked music, which I think, as far as putting it down for that genre, I would look at that. You know what I mean? I would look at that. And then there's a lot of other sounds too that if your spectrum's a bit open, then like Bonjay is another one. They're not really like Afro house or anything like that, but definitely dope music. You know what I mean? So I guess it depends what you're into and what you're open to. For me, I'm open to a lot of different sounds. So, but going back to your question, is there a sound for Toronto for that house sound? I'd say no. I think it gives an opportunity for us to still make one. You know what I mean? So
right.
For us to still develop one through, and that just comes from DJs like yourself and other DJs that we know, just being able to have producers or be able to pull or feel that stuff is something that you want to put in your set. And it also drives us producers to say, okay, I want to make something that these guys would want to have in their set, or want to feel that can make people move and want to put it in their set to pump. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a marriage. You know what I mean?
And more generally, like, do you what's your take on how music is today versus 10, 20 years ago? I think we talked about this the other day about like even like the switch between Afrobeat and hip hop, how the music is way more positive and all that stuff.
Yeah. So
and how hip hop lost itself a little.
Yeah, like what I find too is what's happening now is like you have all that trap stuff and everything, but what I find happening too is like, I don't know, I call it bashment because it's like this sound coming out of the UK. It's uplifting lyrics, but it's still got that like street vibe to it, and to where you want to bump in the club. It's getting people moving. It's like a mix between Afrobeat and dancehall with hip hop or like trap or grime or whatever they do on that end, and it sounds dope. And the lyrics are not all like just talking about all drug culture stuff. It's a bit more, upbeat. ladies like to listen to it, which is also important because you got to make sure they're happy in the events too, right? So it all works well together, and then you have those catchy dance elements in there that make people want to dance to it too, right? So you have all these dances developing and everything like that, so it just becomes a whole nother cipher of positive dope shit, you know what I mean?
I have a tricky question for you. I just thought of that, but you know how African music, there's a whole philosophy of, from what I understood, of getting by through like all the pain and it's just all about dancing this out. And and the thing is, the fact that this is conquering the world, what does it say? What does it say? Like the fact that everybody is on this, I'm like, is it a sign that things is very bad and like people need this to feel good?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why it's picking up in all types of, because the Afro sound is picking up everywhere, like, and it's picking up, if it's not direct, it's like an influence. Like I'm hearing sounds coming out of Miami now where artists, and you can hear all the elements to the point where I can put it in my set with other Afro, like I can move towards it in my set with the Afro sounds or other stuff that's coming out of the UK, because it's got those bass feel good vibes in the music itself, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think people want to feel light, you know what I mean? They want to feel good, they want to feel a release, and that term, the leave it on the dance floor, you know what I mean? All that's there in relation to what you're saying about just leaving it on the dance floor, just getting free, you know what I mean? And these rhythms allow people to do that, so I think that's why it's catching on so much.
But to be the devil's advocate, what you see also is in times are that complex, real statements are going away, but feel good things are coming, like entertainment and this the cinema industry, music industry. Now there's really little statement in music.
Right.
I mean, like, maybe I don't see it, but that's the feeling I have when you compare to the civil rights movements, and the U.S. back in the day with the soul, jazz, R&B.
Yeah. I would agree with you.
Hip hop was another one that was a little more angry.
Yeah. I think the messages are there. I think they're just being put in a different way. It's like, I think in some, like, especially with some of the stuff that comes out of Africa or whatever, and some of the lyrics, when you hear the lyrics, it's like you can tell they're talking about something, but it's not so direct.
Right.
So it drives you to say, okay, what was he just talking about? Like, if someone, like, say someone says a term like seraphim or something, they're like, and he says it in a way, in a poetic way, you're like, what? It's a bit more poetic now, instead of just being directly into your face, to me. So, and I think that's a good thing, because I think people are more sensitive now, so you have to be a little bit more aware of how you might put something across. And that's it. I mean, that's it. It's a it's a tricky place to be in, because you don't want to shut people out from your creativity at the same time. So,
well, that's the thing. Like, art to me, it's supposed to make you a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, but because of what I was saying about the extra sensitivity, it makes it a tricky, because you don't want to be turned as like a hate, like that you're spewing hate, right? So it's.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, like, when I say making you uncomfortable, not necessarily about hate, right? But
But I'm just saying, some things may be construed as that way now, where in the past they weren't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
This extra sensitivity is tricky nowadays.
Yeah. So it's just something to be aware of and, navigate. But I mean, in some cases it works well too, right? So I mean, it's just one of those things you just gotta try to navigate it.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject.
Yeah.
Always a touchy subject. Sorry, I'm asking hard questions.
No, but I don't mind. That's a tough, something that you just have to navigate carefully.
Is there something like when you work on radio? Is it some briefing, like you being briefed of the stuff you can't talk about, that kind of stuff, or is just your own
Well,
judgment?
I mean, everybody that's, as far as what I've seen and what I've been around, as far as the culture at iLife, it's pretty much common sense, right? Like you're not gonna, you don't want to bring extra negativity. It's not about really that. It's not about negativity. We're about like uplifting music, showcasing independent and bringing spotlight to the independent artists, and that's pretty much it. Like that's anything outside of that. It's outside of the scope of what the radio station is about. So if you're on that, you'd probably need to if that's what you're feeling, what your show needs to go to, is probably not the space for it. So no, but I'm just saying. Yeah. So of course, people like some presenters during a particular time period. If it's like Black History Month or something like that, some may feel like, hey, I want to do some more. They want to curate their show to show a little bit more appreciation to that struggle or whatever like that. And when I've seen that happen, it's usually not someone of like it's usually someone of European descent that is choosing to do that. You know what I mean? European descent, as in like a Caucasian person that's looking to do that. So it's yeah. So there's never really anything of oh, you can't say this, you can't say that. We have the freedom to play whatever we like, but at the same time, there's things that are just common sense. You know what I mean? Especially when you're aware of your listening, your time zone, and where you're listening, and who your listeners are, and stuff like that.
But that's the thing that is for me not that obvious, because common sense can be very different across different cultures.
Yeah.
Especially in a city like Toronto, where there's so many cultures. It's if you try to take in consideration every common sense version.
Well, I think it's just like common respects, right? So I mean, you just have this common respects, and you just keep it there. They're pretty much like those ones are pretty much a common across the board. So I think they just keep it there. I mean, if you're they have people who do this to these shows. So I mean, if it's really getting too out of order, someone will like, hey, you need to reel it in. But I've never really seen that. I haven't experienced it for myself, and that's why I'm saying, like, when I listen to other people's shows, listen to my show or something, it's all there's nothing there that's like overly offensive or anything like
right.
that. You know what I mean? So yeah.
I've heard from certain sources that when you compare the States to Canada in terms of like what you can and cannot do, cannot say, sorry, there's like in terms of like freedom of speech, there's a big gap. I don't know if you
I have never really studied that, and maybe it's because also I am not on a station that's regulated by the CRTC. So because of that,
what's the CRTC?
CRTC is the regulation body of the radio airwaves.
Right.
So those are the people that say like what you can play, the censorship and everything.
Really?
Like that. Yeah. The censorship and everything like that. So that time, if you're talking about something, even though for us, where I'm at right now, it could be just general conversation, but to them they feel like, no, that's a no limit. That's a no limit topic or something like that, right? So I don't really know, because I haven't really been under that. Where I have to get all my songs checked before I play and all that kind of stuff. Like I don't.
Is that what happened?
All that. Yeah.
Huh, is that the reason why radio is crap in Canada?
Everything has to get approved.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's only through, and that's why the culture of DJing is the whole like underground radio and college radio was a main thing. Even though they would still have to get have to fight through the censorship because they're on an FM frequency.
Well, I mean, why would you want to play on like CRTF?
No,
How do you call that?
The CRTC. This
CRTC.
is regulating the regulating body, but they regulate all FM signals.
Right. Well, what would you want to play there? If
well, because that's the most reach. And that was before internet, right? And
well, you meet like reach by older generation.
Like, well, yeah, like I mean, this is before internet and before streaming and all that stuff, and everybody has a radio in their car, right? So, and that was the thing. Like that was the culture at the time. You know, getting your bootleg tapes off the radio show and passing them around your friends and all that kind of thing, and getting all the new tracks.
Right.
And being able to know what the new tracks were coming, so you could hit the the record shop and get your records or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you'd find out. So, but now with the internet and everything,
it's not so
much.
I heard there's a thing about how radio needs to play Kenyan music too, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to. You got to play a certain element of a percentage of Canadian music.
So
and I thought it's a good thing though, because.
Yeah, but if you combine with like checking that the content is appropriate, plus does it mean that the CRTC check is basically diluting a lot of the more meaningful, more raw music?
I would say that's a possibility for sure.
Right.
But again, now with internet and direct streaming and everything like that gives a avenue to the independent artists or to the extreme artists, whoever have extreme views or whatnot, to be able to put their stuff out.
So who exactly are those organization protecting?
Who are they protecting?
What's the goal of this?
Well, it's censorship, right? So whoever the censorship bodies feel, whatever's.
Is it censorship, or is it like officially supposed to be protecting someone from like hate speech or something like that?
Well, I think, that protecting people from hate speech is a form of censorship, right?
Right.
So and then that's what it is. Who decides what's allowed? That's a government. It's a government body. So I guess whoever those officials are to say what's good and what's not good. I mean, I know people have had to petition to get things allowed and stuff like that, to get certain radio stations, be able to build certain, or be able to have a frequency to do certain music genres. They have to get that approved, and they've had struggles with that, especially when it comes to the, I don't know, I want to say like, music that are people of color. They've had those challenges and stuff like that. So, I mean, now you've got some of these stations, but it was a challenge back in the day to get these stations that we have now. So
right.
It's all. I mean, it is what it is.
Do you guys on iLive Radio do shows that are not necessarily like music related?
Yeah, so they got talk shows on there, and music shows. So, and interviews that are based shows that are based on interviews. So it's like a talk oriented type show, and then they have music stuff, and then they have mix shows that are like my kind of mix show, right? It's just interviews or just kind of what have you. And then they have call-in interviews and stuff like that. So it's pretty. I mean, it's growing, and I think it's getting a good level of notoriety.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's the power of internet, man.
Yeah.
Pretty much, especially if you're across multiple countries. Actually, it doesn't make it more complicated. Like, you need to regulate with all the government's rules or whatever.
Well, the thing is, internet radio is not regulated right now. So it's pretty much you can do your thing. But I mean, it will be in the future. I mean, that's something that will happen.
Like always.
Yeah. So.
Then people will find another way to that is not regulated yet.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but that's pretty crazy. That's really surprising to me that this old check on content, because it explains a lot why nowadays podcasts are so liked by people. Like,
Oh, yeah.
there's so much success because
Yeah.
it's unfiltered.
Yeah.
You know, like there's no bullshit.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's certainly bullshit. But what I'm saying is it's raw. It's real.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the thing. That's the beauty of the underground radio. I mean, the whole concept of the pirate radio thing was big also here.
Was it?
Yeah, well, to a certain degree. I mean, and that's how they treat the underground radio shows. That's how the parties were kind of treated that way. And then there was a lot of tapes coming in from the UK of underground radio shows from over there also. So that's why we're getting a lot of the house music stuff that was coming from over there. So it was good. I mean, and they had so many genres of music coming out like every week. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, as far as musical influences, that a lot of the tapes that were coming out of the UK at those times were also a big influencer as far as the house music scene, and of course Chicago obviously too. So yeah.
So you were just in front of this. That's where MET, that's where they brought Omar, right?
Yeah, exactly. yeah, they brought Omar here, and also in the theater over on Bathurst with Loose Ends.
Yeah, this concert was something.
Yeah, it was 10 years since he's been here, and that's the whole thing. Like when I was saying the tapes and stuff like that coming from the UK and all that. I mean, that whole UK soul and all the stuff that he was doing, like Omar back then, that whole genre of music was big here. It was very influential, I think, here. Those sounds, like I said, like all those tapes that were coming back across, had a lot of his music. Like that's when I was introduced to Omar in the '90s. So yeah, it's
yeah, my what I remember in France, he was introduced like the originator of acid jazz.
Yeah, man.
And my mother used to play that a lot.
Yeah, I was on that. Back in Hamilton, when I was in high school, I have a circle of friends there, and actually, it's funny because they still big up to Kaysha. Still, give me influence and give me direction in production even today, because those guys went off and were doing like production and all types of stuff. Still are today too, but they were really opened my eyes up to a lot of other music that was happening, because as I said before, I was like really into the hip hop stuff, and those guys were showing me a lot of music that was coming out of the UK and different stuff. And it was like on vinyl too. We just have these sessions and we just be there listening to vinyl records for like hours. It was good, man. It's like just like good education. That's when I got introduced to Fella and a bunch of all this stuff. I was like, what is this? This is crazy. So yeah, it was good times, man. And give me a good jump off to be able to delve into different genres of music, acid jazz and all that stuff. And there was also at that time too, there was a magazine. It's called Straight No Chaser, and man, that was the Bible for music for me at one point. They don't make it anymore, but it was out of the UK, and it was the best music magazine I think that was created ever.
Yeah, and now people have they go on their phone and they have playlists according to their mood.
Yeah.
It just plays, and you just don't care of the artist or the title. You just want something that matches your mood.
Yeah. But that was the thing, man. They get all the underground releases, and they give you all the type of playlists and everything that was coming out. So you could have that direct relation. Then you could actually go to the record store and be able to find your stuff. So it was good.
Right. And when it comes to production, you have like a music background in terms of like instruments?
Yeah. So I was in the Royal Conservatory of Music. I played guitar.
Now we're getting there.
Yeah, I played guitar in Royal Conservatory of Music, so that's where I got my music theory and everything from. And then be able to pull back on that to be able to make music. Be able to, like, when I say that, I just mean like tone, being able to hear tones and things in key, out of key, and stuff like that. But yeah, I can, and timing and being able to arrange a song and stuff like that. So that's where that comes from. And so yeah, because when I first started making music, it was for, like, my first intention was to be able to make music that I could give to musicians to play.
Right.
So that was my first intention. And then from there I just started doing more, just beat making and production, and less on the like composition, where I'm just like, okay, this is what the violins are doing, and doing. I still like to do that though, but I mean, yeah.
I've been meaning to start doing more production this year.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have no music background personally. I just understand music because of dance.
Oh, okay.
Like, I've learned how to hear music.
Yeah.
And to how it translates to movement and how it triggers certain feelings and all that stuff. So I'm trying to
I think being a DJ is a good step for being a producer, I think, personally. Because you already know what makes people dance as a DJ. You know how to keep the floor moving and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just translates right into production, because you gotta know, okay, this will make people dance because of your past experience being a DJ. So,
well, on the top of that, there's something that happens also when you dance, especially when you dance house and you have like a lot of different music in your head that sometimes it's weird, but I create melodies and I sing in my head over the actual melody that I hear, and I mark that melody that I'm making. So maybe it looks like shit outside. I don't know.
No, but that's. I think that's good to do, man. Because then you're like halfway there to making it, versus now you already have it in your head. Now it's just putting it out, manifesting it in your production when you do it. Like whatever instrument you use or whatever like that. It's.
Yeah, I guess it's the
hearing music is important, because a lot of people, they don't hear the music, and then it's tough to make music when you don't hear it. You know what I mean?
Dance is a good way to actually see the music.
Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying there too.
I've seen great, amazing dancers that were able to separate the instruments with different body parts.
Yeah.
Even more than that, body parts. They were having like a part of their body marking a certain instrument and the other.
Yeah.
And that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, giving people different things to dance on. That's one thing that house, I think, or Afro beat, all that type of music that has a lot more percussions and sounds in it, allows people more freedom, because it gives them more things to dance on. So yeah.
Yeah, and really, like, the thing that really slap you in the face is when someone show you something that you didn't hear.
Yeah, right? Yeah, man. And then after that, you can never stop hearing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That transition between you just hearing like a homogenic, and like that stream, and then you're able to separate the different lines. It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, man. I find that, like, when I first started doing production, it's getting your producer ear. Again, big up to my brethren Grace, and he'd be like, "Do you hear that?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "It's like, no, it's like, I don't know, some like hi hat or something like that hitting. And it's like in the background, and there's a hi hat in the back, and it's like I'm listening to it, and then it's like finally you hear it, and you're like, oh man, and you just like, you never stop hearing it, and then it's just developing your production ear to be able to hear it on those different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know? Are you good at understanding when you put too much?
Yes. Yeah. I had a tendency to always put too much bass. So what happened? And people's like, "Oh, turn your bass," but then I took it to someone to master one of my songs, and he's like, "Man, then he educated me on cutting my bass frequencies." So yeah, because sometimes it sounds good to you, it's like in the club, it's banging the bass, but that's not necessarily good for the actual mix or producing of it. That's done later to the DJ's taste on how much bass he wants to turn up on the mixer. You know what I mean? So yeah.
That's something that is still very that I'm still learning a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you learn though. You learn. You just keep talking to different people and like reading and stuff like that. And I was lucky to have some people around me that were just crazy on the actual tech of mixing. So that helped me out a lot to be able to learn and be able to sit in the sessions and learn, like see what they're actually doing, see what frequencies they're cutting, and subtractive EQing and everything like that, and just understanding these techniques. And it helps a lot with your mix, because then when you give it to someone to master, you're actually spending less money because your sessions will be shorter.
Right.
Because you're giving them a cleaner mix. So those are all things you want to. I had to start taking into account and all that.
What about technology? Is it something that?
Oh man, yeah, I love technology. I'm definitely a tech person, a gadget guy. But for my music, I'm using Logic to do my mixes. But to create, I'm using Machine. Yeah, so Machine is definitely my heart of where I start all the creations from. And I recently just got into this thing called Splice. It's a site where you can get like samples and stuff like that. And they're all clear samples, so it might be just like instruments or something like that. But it helped me speed up my production process too. So just the workflow sped up some, so that was good. That's good.
So where do you see the line in terms of how much technology we should use for music? Because do you think the technology is the reason why music is becoming watered down, or is it just human action?
It's becoming more down?
Watered down.
Oh, watered down.
Yeah. Or you think technology is not the cause? It's more like really coming from the human action.
I think it's more human action. Just what people want to listen to, or what people feel is popular, and maybe people not being as interested to branch out and listen to other types of music like they were before. Because it just seems like everyone's kind of on the same kind of sound and vibe. That's one thing I like about the Afro vibe scene, because there's a lot of different variations there. In the mainstream, it just seems like everybody's kind of listening to the same thing. Everybody's producing the same sound, and that's been happening for a long time. So yeah, I think it's just human action. We need more people start playing instruments again, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it came from like all time where when something works, when someone creates something, everybody's just following.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily related to technology.
Yeah, I think it's more human action for sure. And then also too, if someone makes a popular sound, then the next guy may want to make that same thing to try to get that same level of success.
Right.
Instead of making his own type of sound. So that's the other thing too.
Right. Yeah. So what's coming next for you?
Next is I still have my radio show going on, so I will be having different DJs from the Afro community in the city coming in. So I have Sarah coming in, I have TK coming in, and then for me is putting out some more productions, trying to get some more placements, and then I would like to next year put out an album of sounds that I can DJ. I want to get to the point of DJ my own stuff at some point.
Okay, do you play your own stuff as well when you have your
I
show?
do, but I like to get to a point where I can do a whole set of my own material, an hour set or something like that of my own material, and start pushing that.
Sick. Again, don't hesitate to send it to me. I'll put it in that video description.
Yeah, man, I will, 100%.
All right, mate, let's wrap this up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
And,
appreciate it.
And see you. I'll probably try to come with TK for his radio show. I'll come support.
Yeah, man. I'll definitely have it posted. All right, thanks, man.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Bless.